it is a massive issue, and it is a point of contention, I think, between being an owner and being an employee, and
Mm-hmm.
also being just like a reasonable human who I truly do care for my employees,
Mm-hmm.
but also being a operator trying to run a functioning, successful business.
Mm-hmm.
There's this kind of like tension between sometimes having to be overly like caring for your staff, and then also drawing a line to where if everybody's taking a mental health day every day, you can't run your business,
Right.
and then your customers leave, and then you shut down and no one has a job.
Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 2 of our 5-part series with Nick Kassouf from Tru Bru. Tru Bru in California and in Nevada, correct, Nick?
Correct, yeah.
Awesome. How many stores do
Slowly
you have?
branching out. We have 3 right now.
Okay, about to open the 4th.
Yeah, working on a 4th.
Okay,
Yeah, about to
great.
open the 3rd, yeah.
So how many staff do you have over those stores?
Probably somewhere in the 50s to 60s.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So in this series, folks, we're talking about the challenges in staffing today. And today is very different to when Nick started 10 years ago. Today is very different to 2 years ago. Everything has changed sort of post-COVID, and we want to explore that. In the last episode, we talked about the relationship between cafe owners and their staff. In this episode, we're going to talk about the generational differences. Now, I'm a Gen Xer. Nick is a Gen Y or millennial, and the kind of generation that's coming into ownership is the Gen Z. And we recently had a young Gen Zer on the podcast, Hassan Al-Musalmi, and he had some really, really interesting things to say about what Gen Z are looking for in a job, right? And they are very interested in a bigger buy-in into the long-term viability of the business. Whereas I feel like in our generation, there was this distinct difference between people who were just getting into it for a job and people who were just starting to think of coffee could be a career. What's your experience of Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z?
I think to a degree, some of the differences between generations are overly kind of exaggerated.
Okay.
I think that there are definitely differences, but lately I've had experiences hiring a age spectrum of those 3 generations you're talking about, depending on what part of the business it's in, whether it's kind of kitchen side of the business, bakery, roastery. Like,
okay,
we have these different kind of facets, and we have some different age groups in those different departments. And I've lately just, maybe it's just circumstance of what's been happening in my life lately, but it seems like everyone's kind of just subject to human nature and dealing with the same shit, you know?
Oh, interesting.
And so while Gen Z is significantly more subject to kind of what we were talking about before, growing up in that world of the digital realm, the social media, that online interaction, I found some great Gen Zers who are just really hungry to work, learn, and they kind of buck a lot of those stereotypes that you get, that they're lazy and all that. I don't necessarily find that true. I mean, there's some are, but that's probably in every generation.
That was more a millennial thing, I think.
Was it
Sorry,
millennials
mate.
are lazy? Yeah, probably. I'm pretty lazy, but yeah, it's
but so am I. Like, I'm high functioning lazy person.
Well, I think there's something about being lazy and being entrepreneurial, because a lot of being a good entrepreneur is figuring out how to be lazy effectively, because I don't want to do a particular thing. So you'll figure out some system to get it done. Yeah, exactly. So I think there's some sort of overlapping benefit there. What was the question?
Gen Z. So you found Gen Z to be, in your experience, less lazy than millennials. We have a dynamic that's what's happening right now is you've mostly got Gen Xers that are the ones that are open, that are the owners of businesses.
Yeah.
What do you see the relationship between a lot of those Gen Xers and their Gen Z employees?
There definitely is some sort of disconnect. I think it's something that you see kind of Gen X look at the younger generation and just be like, I'm trying to think of the right words to put it, but they have this like sometimes negative outlook on them that, you know, they hold these particular stereotypes that, oh, back in my day, we just worked through, you know, if something was wrong, we just worked through it. And, you know, and to a degree, that probably is true, but it's not a healthy way, I think, to relate to the younger generation. And I think I'm in a fortunate situation being a millennial, kind of at the flux point of these two generations. I'm like a little bit of a later millennial. And so I kind of have a foot in both sides where I can see where both sides come from. I was kind of the last generation to grow up before the age of the internet, just at least for a few years. But, you know, as an early child, then I was, you know, thrown headfirst into the internet and digital world. But at least I got a little glimpse of that pre-digitized world. So I can kind of see where some of the Gen X comes from and kind of bridge that gap. And I try to be understanding with our younger employees and just give them grace to kind of express what it is to be in that generation. But like I was saying, I really find that a lot of them are extremely hardworking, intelligent, and I think, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong per se with Gen Z. I think they'll be good stewards as they kind of age into the population. I just worry, I guess, for their mental health. I think that's like a big thing that they struggle with. But I think, again, that's probably, in my opinion, from that extreme pressure of social media and just the sort of comparison that these people make to everybody else in the world. The world's no longer a small place. Now everyone's comparing each other to everybody else in the world. And, you know, if they feel like they're not in a particular place at a particular age, it's tough. It's tough for them.
Do you think that that's the number one thing that is the burden on the workforce? Because, and the reason I ask this is when I put the call out to say to people, what do you want to hear about when it comes to staffing? When I have this conversation with you, Nick, mental health was something that a lot of people asked about. Can you guys talk about mental health? Do you think that that is the concern that surrounds the workplace? And what I mean by that is, do you think that employees are looking for employers who care more about their mental health than they do about coffee?
It's hard to say for me personally what they are looking for. I guess I'm a bit far removed now from being an employee, but I think that
folks, our first on-demand workshop, How to Become a Coffee Consultant, is now available for you to learn at your own pace for just €50, and it comes with a certificate upon completion. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for more details. Support this podcast by supporting our sponsors.
It is a massive issue, and it is a point of contention, I think, between being an owner and being an employee, and also being just like a reasonable human who I truly do care for my employees, but also being a operator trying to run a functioning, successful business. There's this kind of like tension between sometimes having to be overly like caring for your staff, and then also drawing a line to where if everybody's taking a mental health day every day, you can't run your business. And then your customers leave and then you shut down and no one has a job. It's like you have to walk this tightrope of showing care for this post-COVID world that is full of all these pressures on people. And I truly do see many people, including my staff, like dealing with just so much anxiety and stress from just the daily burdens of life. And then how do I properly staff a cafe and run it and have it function? Because for us, if we have one or two people down, it's almost unbearable to function throughout the day, because we truly count on every person that's working. And even if one person's out, it's really bad. Usually I'll come in and fill in. But if two people are out, it's like you might have to
Chaos.
close down. I mean, it's insane how difficult it can become, because there's so many facets that go into running the day to day of at least our cafe. We have, a little bit more of a kitchen and some other variables to tend to. So, how do I draw that line of caring that somebody may be dealing with something, they might need that day off, or telling them like, hey, you got to suck it up, like it's a weekend and we're going to die if you don't come in.
Right.
So it's like, that's this tension that, is constantly going on between the staffing and the operator.
Because where's the line where it becomes grace versus coddling?
That's the line you got to find. And I think you don't know until you like butt up against people's lines, and sometimes it breaks them. I mean, I lost, unfortunately, a really great manager earlier this year because she just got burned out. And it just, it's just one of those things where for a while I had great long-term employees who were there for several years. I had several employees who were there for over 5 years, which I think is really great from an industry standard perspective. And I did everything in my power to retain them, good pay, benefits. We do, health benefits, 401k, yada, yada. Like we offer quite a bit more than any, independent coffee shops, at least around us. But at the end of the day, sometimes it becomes too much for people and they just burn out. I think burnout is huge for, I think, managers, I think even owners, and then for just even your entry level barista, everyone is on that verge of burnout.
Yeah. When I was coming up in the industry as a Gen Xer, excuse me, for us, the whole mindset was work hard, don't complain. If things weren't quite right, you just sucked it up. That's how you showed that you're a good employee. Now my generation are the cafe owners, and there's a lot of confusion and a lot of frustration around all the laws that are being written about what you can accept and what you can't accept, and a lot of HR issues around, for example, being able to, excuse me, ask someone to do a little bit extra. So, for example, if they're a barista, asking them to take out the trash, and baristas don't want to take out the trash anymore. And so they're saying to their employers, you can't ask me to take out the trash. That's not what I do. I'm not the cleaner. My job title is the barista. My generation would have turned around and said, no problem. I've been asked to take out the trash. I'm going to take out the trash. Now there's the challenging part about this is we're not talking about a corporate situation where the corporation has the money to be able to have a cleaner to take care of these things. We're talking about small businesses that are running at razor thin margins, that hiring a hiring a cleaner completely wipes out any chance at that. I don't know what's going to be the thing that changes, because I think that, like as we were saying earlier in this episode, there's a culmination of things that are coming together that are making this a very stressful environment. And while it's very difficult from a mental health perspective for the staff, and there's a lot of anxiety around this for the staff, the same could be said of the owners. The stress of running a business is getting so overwhelming, as well as the legislation that is it's being prohibitive and getting so expensive to run a small business in countries like the United States and countries like Australia, and to countries like places like the UAE. It's just so prohibitive to do this that you kind of think, is this worth it?
Yeah, I think about that a lot, and you're completely right. I have several friends who own coffee shops. So I'm friends with several other cafe owners, and everybody is essentially chronically on the verge of just complete burnout and collapse. Like, and the crazy thing is you will struggle with that if you are not financially sustainable. But then if
Yep.
you are a financially successful shop, then you have a different set of problems.
Yep.
And either way, you're dealing with constant stress, and it's not easy. I do tell some of the people I consult with who are interested in opening a shop, one of the first things I tell them is you need an extremely high stress tolerance. I think that's probably necessary in most businesses, but I think especially in the coffee industry, you need a degree of a stress tolerance, because it gets challenging.
Yeah, don't make this the thing where you cultivate resilience and grit. First of all, there's easier ways to make no money. There are much easier ways to make no money, right? But this will, I say my consulting work all the time. This is the industry that when you open a business, it's going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself. Remember, I told you that when we first started working together, Nick.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, or whatever it was, when we had a consult. Being in this industry and being in business in this industry is going to teach you everything you never wanted to know about yourself. And I have never met a business owner that wasn't true for.
It really puts the mirror up to you.
It really does. So perhaps start small, start in a pop-up. And I am always blown away by how many people get into this industry that know fucking nothing about this industry. Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah. It's a romanticized industry, and a lot of the people that I kind of consult with or talk with have a naive understanding of what truly goes into it, and they just think that, oh, I'm an accountant, it's my dream to open a coffee shop one day when I retire. And I'm just like, you're not going to retire if you open a coffee shop. That's the complete opposite. Like, it's not what you think.
I love that. Okay, so in the next episode, we're going to talk about the most challenging aspects of running a cafe in 2023 and beyond. And obviously at the cornerstone of that is going to be the conversation around staffing, because it seems to be the thread that is going to pull a lot of businesses apart. So join us for the next episode, folks. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.